Hey everybody, this is Danny with Legendary Muscle, and today I'm here with Frank in his 1930 Ford Coupe. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So this car immediately caught my attention just because it looks so much like the American Graffiti car. Did you have this car for very long? I mean, where did you get this car actually?
Well, I bought it in 2006 in Pennsylvania. We lived in Pennsylvania, and it was at a national event in York, Pennsylvania, and the fellow had this for sale. And I saw it, and I always wanted one, a straight rod with a 5-window coupe. So I went up to him and asked him what he wanted for it, and he said he changed his mind. He says, I don't want to sell it.
Oh.
And I said, well, why? And he said, well, my wife doesn't want me to sell it. So I gave him my name and phone number, and I said, if you ever want to sell it. Anyway, he called me about 3 months later, and he said, I've changed my mind. I talked my wife into it. It's for sale. So we went up to take a look at it. I drove it. Wasn't thrilled with it, but I got a good price, so I bought it.
Oh, okay.
And a good story bringing it home. A friend of mine, we had a trailer. We put it on the trailer at this guy's house, and he actually put it on the trailer for me. We lashed it down, and when we brought it home, the front of our house, the driveway and the road has a little bit of a slant.
Gotcha.
So we, I didn't. My buddy who brought the trailer unlashed it, and all of a sudden it started moving. They didn't put the brake on.
Oh, shoot.
It goes off the back, and I'm thinking, oh, this is the end of my nice car. It goes off the back of the trailer, and there was originally a battery box underneath it. And the battery box caught the back of the trailer, and the car's teeter-tottering on this thing.
Lucky you.
So, and my wife said later, she said, I was looking out there and I see this. She says, I just turned around and walked in the house.
I don't want no part to do with this.
No, but that was my first story with it. At any rate, we brought it home and started doing some stuff to it.
Okay. So what did it look like when you got it? I mean, did it look somewhat like this, or?
It was painted. This is the paint that was on it. The fellow who painted it, first time he'd ever painted a car, he did it in his garage. It has orange peel. It has rust on it, or not rust, but runs on it. But it's a hot rod.
Yeah.
And it's not supposed to be perfect.
It's not a trailer queen.
That's right. So it had red velour interior. It had all white walls. The back end was lower than the front end. It was kind of an ugly duckling, but it was there. There was no chrome on it. It had the original bumpers, but they were painted. So it was a process of, what do I do? Where do I start?
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I started taking it apart and
now you said that came with the fenders, correct?
It had fenders. It looked basically the same.
What are these fenders out of?
These are made from, because of a problem we had. This is actually the rim on a Continental kit. We took a Continental kit and we cut the rim and molded it and put the brackets and so forth on it.
All right, so a little bit of creativity there, right?
There's quite a bit in this car.
I can see that.
A lot of handmade things.
I can see that. And you mentioned it was a 5-window coupe, so did they make these in 3 windows as well?
They made them in 3 windows. A lot of people don't know how to count. They consider the windshield a window. It's not. A windshield is a windshield. You count the windows except for the windshield. So that's how you get to a 5-window coupe.
Okay. So everything on this car looks great. I don't even want to get into the engine yet, but the frame, it looks very new as well. Is that a new frame? It
is a frame. It's a Stage 3 frame by Pete and Jake's, which is a company that designs frames. They'll sell you just the frame, they'll sell you the frame and everything else that goes with it. This is a Stage 3 frame, which means it's basically a drivable frame. Okay. You're supposed to be able to put your car on it and drive it.
Turnkey.
They build it to your specifications. They take it apart, they send it to you, and you finish it off. Yeah, that's basically what it is. This has what they call a chrome package, which is where all the chrome comes from in the front end. So that was extra. The only difference in the frame from an original Model A frame, which it's designed after, is it has a 2-inch step in the back of it, which gives the car a little bit more rake.
Okay.
Makes it look a little nastier, they say.
Yeah. We like that.
But it also gives you a problem because you can't see the traffic lights because you're sitting like this.
True.
Yeah.
Your brakes and your suspension wise on this, what do you have going on?
This has Willwood front disc brakes on it and drum brakes in the back. It's a 9-inch forward rear in the back, which is all part of this kit. It all came with it.
Okay, even the rear end came
Right,
with it.
even the clutch pedals and the brake pedal, and that's there.
Now you mentioned something about an accident when you had with this.
Yeah, well, let me go back a little bit. When I did this, I originally had 3 carburetors on it, and I didn't have the chrome in the front. At any rate, I was going to breakfast with a bunch of my friends, and we met at a restaurant for breakfast, and it was in October, and I was looking down at the temperature gauge, wasn't paying attention, and there was a car stopped in front of me, and
Oh, shoot.
so basically I swerved, caved the whole front of this in, bent the frame. That's why I had to have a new frame.
Yeah.
And after that, that was in 2009 of the accident. It originally had a fiberglass grill shell on it and different fenders. It was the same style fender, but different fenders. This is now a steel fender, as is the car. It's an original 30 Model A Ford.
Okay, so now you're
steel. But it was a mess. I mean, it was, believe it or not, it was $27,000 worth of damage.
Wow.
So that's when I decided, okay, we're going to really do some work on this car. So it was finished in October of 2010. And that's when it had the new frame. And of course, when you get these parts, they're just bare metal. You have to make sure your welds are right. This had to be painted. And it's basically putting the whole car back together and redoing the parts that you got. They may be correct, but
it's your job to make sure everything
it is. As an example, this has a ladder back rear end suspension, and they were wrong. The parts came wrong. The clutch pedals that came and brake pedal that came up through the floor came up and then went down instead of coming up the way they should have been.
Yeah.
So there were a few things that we had to get fixed. But it was a lot of work. I mean, the whole body had to come off, the engine had to come out, everything.
I see. So your interior, is that the original seats in there? Or?
That's the original seat, but it's tuck and rolled because of the American Graffiti theme that I tried to do. It's tuck and rolled, but it is marine vinyl. It's not leather.
Okay,
it looks like, it feels like, but it's real durable.
Yeah.
And the fellow who did this believe it or not, took almost 6 months to do it. He was an upholsterer for a boat company, and he talked me into doing the marine vinyl. And it was probably the best decision I made because it's all tuck and rolled, it's all padded. And, to do a complete interior, it's his carpeting, mats, everything. It was like $2,800 for everything, which was a good deal.
So what kind of gauges do you have on this?
This has a mishmash of gauges. The speedometer is the original speedometer.
Okay.
The maximum speed on the speedometer is 75 miles an hour.
Long gone.
Right. I use the tachometer really to justify how fast I'm going because I know where the RPMs are at whatever gear I'm in. There's a fuel gauge, obviously, an oil pressure gauge, a temperature gauge, and an amp gauge, plus a speedometer and a tachometer.
Okay.
But I tried to keep it, because it's a hot rod, I tried to keep it as old style as I could.
Exactly. So your rims that you have on here, what kind of rims are these?
These are Kragers, and originally I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted some chrome because chrome's my favorite color, as you can see.
Yes.
But I tried different wheels. My 31 Chevy had also American racing wheels on it. And I would take them off and put them on here, take pictures and put them in there. So I decided on the Kragers. To me, Krager is a traditional Yes. Hot rod wheel.
Yes, yes.
And
the grandfather of hot rod wheels.
It is, yeah.
So with all that being said, and I'm seeing your engine, what do you say we show the audience your engine, talk a little bit about that?
Fine.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay, Frank, so tell me, what kind of engine do we have here?
It's a Chevrolet engine. It's a 350 cubic inch bored 30 over, which gives it 355 cubic inches. Okay. It has 4 two-barrel carburetors. They're actually about 204, 205 CFM each. The air cleaners are real pistons. They're General Motors pistons that have been turned into air cleaners.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's a kind of an interesting story. Originally, it had 3 carburetors on it before the accident. And a friend of mine gave me 3 piston air cleaners. Well, when I decided to change it to 4, when I redid the car, I didn't have another piston air cleaner. So he gave me the address and so forth. Anyway, I called the company in California. And they said, oh, we have, there's some parts for them, but I don't know what we have. Anyway, to make a long story short, after about 6 months, we finally agreed. I got 5 more of these piston air cleaners that were not in great shape. So these 4 I have chrome plated, as did the whole top of the motor, which was basically all bare aluminum. It's electronic ignition. It runs really very well. The exhaust system is Pete and Jake's headers. They call these the J-Ster headers. They go underneath the back of the car with J.C. Whitney mufflers on them, believe it or not. That's a name that people will remember from years and years ago. They're little short mufflers, and they have all been ceramic coated. The exhaust, the mufflers, all the way into the back. It's a pretty easy engine to work on, but to get the carburetors to work equally and have them run right, it was quite a problem. It took me almost a year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a setup that you see that often on cars.
No, it isn't. And this company, Barry Green, as I said, went bankrupt. And another easy story, a quick story, is these carburetors, when I had the rest of the stuff chromed, I looked at the carburetors and they weren't chromed and they just didn't look right. So I sent them back to Barry Grant and they said, we will do them, but they take them apart and they send them away and they get them chromed. Well, I kept calling them and calling them and calling them. I got the carburetors back 1 week before the company declared bankruptcy.
Oh, wow.
Which is really lucky. And they were okay. So
how much horsepower would you say this is pushing out?
Right now, I'd say between 370 and 380 in that area. Very drivable. It's a fun car. It's not the fastest car in the world, but it goes pretty good.
So what kind of transmission do you have backing this up?
This when they originally got it, it had a Ford truck top loader, which I think was early 50s. 3-speed transmission with terrible synchromesh. You couldn't get it in and out of gear. Now it has a Muncie M20 4-speed transmission with a Hurst shifter, a 9-inch Ford rear with the 325 gear set up in it. I just couldn't put an automatic transmission in a hot rod.
I know.
It went against my, grudge. I just couldn't do it.
So, I'm getting the urge to take a ride on this. What do you think?
It's okay with me.
All right, let's do it.
You put your seatbelt on.
Okay. All right. So I appreciate the ride you're giving us here with our show. I'm looking at your car on the inside, and you do have some signatures here. What are they from? I know John Milner is from American Graffiti, right?
Yep, he drove the yellow coupe in the movie American Graffiti. His name is Paul Lamont. He acted the part of John Milner. And this is a Big Daddy, Don Garland, who has his Museum of Drag Racing in Ocala. He signed that in 2013. And the one on the bottom is Josh Hart, who owns Bernie's Speed Shop and is now a professional top fuel drag racer.
Okay, that's here in Ocala, right?
Yep, that's in Ocala.
So, do you know when the guy that played John Miller, you know when he signed this?
the top floor, Josh Hart did 2021.
2021.
Yeah. And when Milner signed it, that signature was on the car when I bought it.
Oh, okay. It was already on the car.
It was signed somewhere in Pennsylvania. I think probably Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. So yeah, this car came from Pennsylvania. That's right.
Yeah, and it was that was already on there. We used to have a lot of really big shows in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
And I'm pretty sure that's where he was, because he would go there and sign autographs for people and charge them for it. That's how he made his living back then.
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of actors do that nowadays, especially the ones that are already starting to lay off the acting a little bit. They still give back to the community. This is so this roof line, this is chopped, obviously, right?
It's chopped between 2 and 2.5 inches.
2 and 2.5 inches, right? So do you have one of those viewfinder things or whatever to look for the stoplights to see it?
Right here.
Oh, there it is.
And it's if I didn't have that, because you have a sun visor on, you couldn't see the traffic lights. And you have to learn to trust them.
Yeah.
But you still get a little leery about it.
Yeah, I remember in the movie American Graffiti, which John Milner, he's over there, he's always has his arm out, looking underneath.
Yeah.
It's really chopped.
Yeah, it looked cool doing that. You'll have a cigarette hanging out of your mouth, and a pack of cigarettes in your shirt.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's that. My dad used to do that, believe it or not.
Yeah.
He worked construction, had his white T-shirt on, cigarettes, pack of Marlboro right there.
Yeah, that was back then, and like I say, it was in the 50s, early 50s, mid 50s, and the beginning of the 60s. That's what you would do. You had to be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to wear the T-shirt, jeans. Of course, you rolled up the pant legs on the jeans.
Yep.
Penny loafers, as they used to wear, things like that. Now I'm dating myself. You know. They were great times. It really was. A lot of fun.
So were you always a big fan of American Graffiti, and you saw the car?
I think I was. I'd always liked the movie.
Okay.
There were a couple of movies back there. There was another movie called Hot Rod, where a fella had a 1940 Willys and went to California and so forth. It was a good story. A little slow, but a lot of the movies back then were slow. The American Graffiti, I think I really got interested when I bought the car. I started collecting the models because there were 2 movies. There were a lot of cars in those movies. And I have a huge collection of all the different cars, like over 100 of them, in their boxes.
That's cool.
But it's getting to be too darn costly. Some of these things, they want $150 or more for a model.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
And these cars, like we were mentioning, the 3-window and the 5-window, right? They had 3 windows in these, right?
Yep, this is the 5-window.
So the 5-window, was that considered like a luxury model or what?
It was considered a coupe. Both of them were considered coupe. The 3-window and the 5-window. They were all considered coupes. When you get into the sedan, you had more because your back window was a little, not the back window, but the back side window was longer. And they had the ones they called the Vicky, which that window on the side was not as long as the sedan. So you had a whole bunch of different. You had a Cabriolet, which was a long convertible. You had the convertible. You had quite a few models back then. This is considered a Model A, which was like 29 to 31. 32 Ford, which was what the graffiti car was. A 5-window 32 Ford Coupe. That was much rounder. They looked basically the same, all of them did back then. But it was smoother. The doors didn't overlap when they closed like the Model A. They fit flush. It was, I guess, kind of a prettier car. But so the 1932 Ford was the one everybody wants. Because it's the premier hot rod.
Yeah. So I remember seeing this car on a commercial. It was on a commercial, right?
Yeah. Good commercial.
Yeah, it was, I believe Eileen had her 55 on there.
Yeah. The 55 Chevy. We've done a couple of things that way. It's been a lot of fun. Of course, that's basically the way the movie was run, with the yellow coupe and the 55 Chevy.
Yeah. That was at the time when I was a kid. I didn't even realize it was Harrison Ford that was on the movie until later on. But yeah, I mean, this has been great. I really appreciate the time you've given us. Do you want to give a special shout out to anybody?
Yeah, I think I'd like to say some things for a few people. I've got a lot of friends down here in Florida. All my car buddies, quite a few clubs I belong to. The Twilight Cruisers, Bellevue, the Ocala Street Cruisers, the Cruisers Club, which I belong to, and we have a little club in our community called the Stonecrest Auto Enthusiasts. And the original club that I belong to, which I still feel like I'm a member, that's the Philadelphia Modifiers. They've been friends of mine for years. That club's been in existence since the mid-50s. A lot of friends, unfortunately, a lot of them have passed away, but all good people. And last but not least, my wife, for putting up with me for all these years with this crazy hobby of mine. And unfortunately, she's not a car girl, and she lets me get away with it. So kudos to my bride. She's great.
Yep, you heard it. So from Frank, Danny, if you like this video, like and subscribe. We'll see you later.